Electric vehicles have always seemed like a luxury for people with deep pockets, while everyone else stands on the sidelines, skeptical and unsure. Either the prices are too steep or the hype feels too good to be true. But here's the surprise that could shatter every assumption you've heard. General Motors has launched an electric car at a price so low it almost sounds impossible. It's the kind of figure that makes you lean forward in disbelief, wondering what the catch is. Rumors have been swirling on car forums, social media threads, and even tech blogs. There's no way GM can pull off an EV this cheap without cutting major corners, some skeptics say. Others have pointed to the company's earlier missteps and speculated that this might be nothing more than a flashy marketing move. Yet for every skeptic, there's someone who sees an unprecedented opportunity, an EV accessible to everyday drivers, not just the well-heeled. Before we dive in, keep one question at the front of your mind. Can a budget electric vehicle truly deliver on its promises? From the price tag to the performance, from interior comforts to the controversy swirling around GM's EV track record, we're about to explore every single angle. By the end, you'll have enough to decide if this new model changes everything or if it's just another promise that might come undone. When the news first dropped that GM was releasing an EV for an eye-popping $12,000, many dismissed it as a rumor or a misunderstanding. Yet it turns out the rumored price was no misprint. General Motors really did unveil a brand new electric car with a base cost that's lower than what many people pay for a used gas-powered sedan. If this number makes you do a double take, rest assured you're not alone. Right away, the EV community lit up. How could a major automaker, known for flagship electric models that cost 3 to 4 times as much, suddenly undercut the entire industry? Tesla's least expensive model runs well into the upper 5 figures, even after recent price cuts, so the difference is dramatic. This new GM entry is priced so competitively that it's practically in the subcompact gasoline car range, and that's a domain that has traditionally been dominated by older, less safe, and less tech-savvy cars. Speculations are everywhere. Some say GM negotiated rock-bottom costs for its battery cells by buying them in enormous bulk. Others argue that government incentives for EV production, combined with GM's own shift towards scalable platforms, allowed the brand to slash manufacturing expenses. A more controversial theory is that GM is willing to take a short-term loss on each vehicle sold just to claim a huge share of the affordable EV market, essentially gambling on future profits once they dominate the segment. Yet here's where the real puzzle begins. What's the compromise? Is it missing crucial features? Is the battery life subpar? Has GM skimped on materials or safety elements? Or is this the real deal? A true everyday electric car for the masses? What's crystal clear is that the price alone is generating massive buzz, potentially reshaping the conversation around electric mobility. People who once wrote off EVs as an expensive luxury are suddenly paying attention. This isn't just a curiosity for gearheads, it's a development that could affect anyone wondering if their next car should be electric. When most of us think of budget cars, we picture underpowered engines that struggle to merge onto the highway. The assumption is simple: low price equals lackluster performance. But GM's new budget EV does something unexpected. It's not slow. While it certainly isn't a high-octane sports car, it manages to deliver a surprisingly peppy ride, especially around town, thanks in large part to the nature of electric powertrains. At its core, the car houses a single motor setup driving the front wheels. Electric motors deliver torque almost instantly, which makes even modest systems feel lively in stop-and-go traffic. Where a budget gas engine might hesitate when you stomp on the pedal, this EV jumps forward with an immediacy that catches many test drivers off guard. It's a reminder that, yes, even cheap EVs can out-accelerate many similarly priced gas vehicles, at least for the first few seconds off the line. Then there's the range. The official numbers suggest it can travel upwards of 300 miles on a full charge. If those stats sound too good for a so-called bargain model, the real-world testing has been even more revealing. Various early adopters claim they're getting at least the advertised distance. Some are even exceeding it by driving conservatively. Whether that's thanks to GM's improvements in battery cell chemistry or the car's aerodynamic design remains hotly debated. But the truth is, no one expects this level of range from something priced at $12,000. Charging speed is another area that often worries potential EV buyers. Tesla remains the gold standard with its supercharger network, but GM isn't lagging behind as much as it used to. Fast charging compatibility means you can recoup a significant chunk of the car's range in about half an hour at compatible stations. Granted, the network is not as widespread or as streamlined as Tesla's, but it's no longer the Wild West it was a few years back. More fast charging stations pop up every month, and GM has publicly committed to keep expanding. For everyday usage, most owners rely on charging overnight at home, which is typically cheaper and more convenient than any public station. That's probably the scenario GM has in mind: a city commuter or a suburban family who plugs in at night and starts each morning with a full tank. And though you won't break any land speed records with a single motor, city drivers and short-haul commuters could find it more than satisfying. Once you step inside, the first thing you might expect from a budget EV is bare-bones design. Cheap plastics, minimal tech, and a dash that looks a decade out of date. Prepare to be surprised. The cabin layout, while obviously not lavish, offers a modern and functional atmosphere. A large digital display dominates the dash, merging the instrument panel with an infotainment center that responds quickly to voice and touch commands. That said, GM made some unconventional decisions. For instance, Apple CarPlay or Android Auto integration might be missing in the base trim. Instead, GM's own system is baked in, meaning you get a curated selection of apps that run seamlessly but can feel limited compared to what your phone offers. If you're a smartphone power user, that might annoy you. On the other hand, the simpler system might be more intuitive for folks who aren't glued to their device. Seating space is another point of interest. Electric drivetrains often allow for more open interior architecture since you don't have to accommodate a large gas engine or a bulky transmission tunnel. GM's new EV takes advantage of that, giving front passengers respectable legroom, while the back seats remain roomy enough for average adults, if not extravagantly so. You probably won't confuse it for a luxury sedan, but it doesn't feel cramped. Where you'll notice cost cutting is in the materials and convenience features. Single zone climate control might mean your backseat passengers have to rely on vents that are more of an afterthought. You won't find plush heated leather seating in the standard model. You might discover fewer soft touch surfaces and a less sophisticated audio setup than in higher priced EVs. The speakers work, but they won't impress audiophiles who want booming bass or crystal clear highs. Yet, for a car that sells at a fraction of Tesla's typical price, this interior is shockingly livable. Nothing rattles incessantly, and you won't see glaring gaps where panels meet. GM clearly allocated the budget in a way that ensures a competent, if minimalist, cockpit. Even the trunk area, though modest, benefits from a low-load floor, making grocery hauling a breeze. No major automaker arrives at a product this bold without its share of drama. If you follow GM's history with electric vehicles, you know about the Chevy Bolt recall fiasco and the early software bugs that plagued the Blazer EV. In some cases, battery packs faced potential fire hazards. In others, owners were left waiting for updates that took longer than expected. These experiences stick in people's minds and raise the question, did GM learn from these mistakes? Or are we about to see a repeat? While this new EV is priced to sell, some critics question whether corners might have been cut too aggressively. For instance, sourcing battery components from new suppliers could introduce reliability issues if those suppliers aren't properly vetted. Some have pointed out that GM has had to navigate lawsuits over alleged battery defects in prior models, so any fresh issues could reignite concerns. Accusations surfaced regarding how quickly GM rushed out earlier EVs to catch up with Tesla. Will this ultra-cheap model be any different? Then there's the charging infrastructure. Despite making progress, GM still doesn't have a proprietary charging network anywhere close to Tesla's superchargers. Relying on third-party networks can be a gamble. Stations vary in speed, reliability, and location, factors that can make or break your ownership experience. City dwellers with private parking might never feel the pinch, but rural drivers or apartment residents face a more complicated situation. Another point to keep in mind is long-term durability. Lowering the price might involve using more basic suspension components, simpler electronics, and fewer advanced safety systems. The risk is that while the car might perform well initially, longevity is less certain. Will these budget-minded materials stand up to the test of time? Will owners have to deal with creaking panels, rattling door frames, or software that's quickly outdated? Software reliability itself is another wildcard. GM claims major improvements in their over-the-air update process, promising a smoother experience than with older models. However, any new platform rollout can bring unforeseen hiccups. Early adopters may find themselves serving as beta testers for these updates, which can be frustrating if your car's daily performance is impacted. Despite these pitfalls, there's no question GM is making waves. Even negative press can't overshadow the fact that they've introduced an EV at a jaw-droppingly low price. Perhaps the biggest controversy is the boldness of undercutting nearly every other EV brand in a single shot. If you threaten to steal a large piece of the market, you inevitably attract scrutiny. We've talked about Tesla, the giant that's historically dominated the EV conversation. Tesla remains the benchmark for innovation, range, and charging infrastructure. But as soon as GM's new model was announced, eyes turned to Elon Musk's camp. Would Tesla cut prices again? Could it afford to? Tesla has already reduced costs on some models, but undercutting GM at a $12,000 price point seems virtually impossible for them, at least right now. Doing so might slash profit margins, spooking investors, and potentially undermining the brand's premium appeal. This isn't just a GM versus Tesla showdown though. Two other companies feeling the heat are Hyundai and Kia, both of which have made significant inroads into the affordable EV sector. Hyundai, long praised for delivering reasonably priced cars with robust quality and warranties, now finds itself overshadowed by GM's even cheaper alternative. Meanwhile, Kia, which has pushed design and performance flair, must convince buyers that paying more is still worthwhile when a brand new GM EV costs less than a typical Kia or Hyundai. Many cost-conscious shoppers might be tempted to switch. For Hyundai, this is a direct challenge. Their EV lineup has been lauded for balancing affordability, tech, and reliability, but that sweet spot is threatened by GM's radical pricing. Hyundai can't easily drop its own prices without making sacrifices. Will those cuts compromise Hyundai's reputation for quality? Kia's predicament is slightly different. Known for trendy designs, user-friendly features, and strong warranties, Kia now needs to show that style and comfort justify a higher price. But with so many watchers focusing on raw cost, can Kia maintain a design-centric approach? If it lowers costs too much, it risks losing that upmarket edge it's worked so hard to cultivate. Beyond the competition, GM's move signals a bigger shift. EVs are no longer niche or premium only. They're becoming everyday transportation for people who prioritize efficiency and cost. This shakes up the old notion that EV owners are affluent or purely environmental enthusiasts. The market is moving toward mass adoption, and GM wants to lead that charge. The significance of this shift can't be overstated. If GM succeeds, we might witness a domino effect in the industry. More brands could scramble to launch lower-priced EVs, reshaping factories, rethinking battery supply chains, and cutting non-essential features. EV technology is evolving so quickly that the race to deliver the best cheap EV could become as intense as the race for the fastest EV once was. Price tags catch headlines, but the actual cost of owning a vehicle involves more than the sticker number. While $12,000 is game-changing, it's crucial to note what that base price includes and what it doesn't. For instance, certain advanced driver assistance features, upgraded interior materials, or even extended battery warranties might be locked behind optional packages. Rack up too many add-ons and you could approach the price of a mid-tier gas car or a slightly pricier EV from a competitor. Even so, few vehicles, gas or electric, come close to this baseline cost, and once you consider tax credits or other incentives, the effective price may drop even further. Different states offer rebates, utility companies sometimes provide discounts on charging equipment, and the federal government has historically offered tax credits for EV purchases. For someone able to stack these benefits, the out-of-pocket price might be unbelievably low. Operating costs also tilt heavily in favor of EVs. Electricity is typically cheaper per mile than gasoline, especially if you charge during off-peak hours. Maintenance is reduced, no oil changes, fewer fluids, and regenerative braking that extends the life of brake pads. Over several years, these savings can amount to thousands of dollars compared to a gas-powered equivalent. However, one uncertain factor is resale value. EV technology changes rapidly, and some older models depreciate faster than their gas counterparts once new battery innovations hit the market. GM's modular battery design might allow for upgrades, which could help the car retain value, but that remains to be tested. If improvements in battery efficiency or range surge ahead at breakneck speed, any older model, especially one labeled entry-level, might see sharper depreciation. For city dwellers who drive moderate distances daily, the total cost of owning this EV remains incredibly attractive. Rural owners or those without stable access to chargers might hesitate. Infrastructure can be a deal breaker. If you rely on public stations in an area with limited options, the cost and wasted time could offset the money you saved on the sticker price. So where does this leave us? GM has arguably sparked one of the biggest industry twists in recent years by proving that an electric car can arrive at a price point once considered unthinkable. For decades, the mainstream narrative has been that EVs were too expensive, too niche, or too compromised for the average driver. Now, that storyline is under serious pressure to change. Critics still point to potential drawbacks: a new platform that might carry teething troubles, limited premium features unless you pay extra, and a less robust charging network compared to Tesla. Yet there's no escaping the fact that $12,000 for a brand new electric car redefines the conversation. Hyundai, Kia, Nissan, and every other player in the affordable EV sector must reevaluate their pricing structures, or risk losing out to GM's wave of early adopters. Tesla too can't ignore this. It might remain the premium EV icon, but if GM's newcomer is reliable enough, thousands of everyday buyers who never considered electric could switch, particularly those who prioritize cost and practicality over software perks or track-level acceleration. This is bigger than any single brand war. It's a potential pivot for the entire automotive world, signaling a new era in which electric cars are not just feasible for the wealthy or the eco-conscious, but for anyone with the desire to break away from rising fuel costs and get a taste of tomorrow's technology. Is it the perfect EV for everyone? Absolutely not. But perfect or not, it's an unignorable sign that budget-friendly electric mobility is no longer some pie-in-the-sky fantasy. Now the real question, will you trust GM's bold gamble, or will you hold out for something else? The skeptics have their reasons, and the enthusiasts have their excitement. Whichever side you land on, the automotive landscape just got a lot more interesting. Let us know where you stand, because one thing's certain, the debate around cheap, widely accessible EVs has only just begun.